The colonnade answer. The room never agreed on a time of day. Sunlight ran in bright sheets across the marble, warm and gold. Between the columns, the world was night, a square of deep sky cut like a window, with a moon hanging low and pale as a coin between two ribs of stone. People came to that window to ask one question. I kept the lines straight and the rules simple. Rule 1, only one question. Speak it aloud. Rule 2, no one tells the moon what to do. You ask, you watch, you obey. Rule 3, when you leave, you will forget you came. You will carry only the action, not the reason. I had said those words 1,000 times. I wore the caretaker's cloak, which was really just a way to be ignored. Visitors register the fabric, the columns, the shine on the floor. They never remember the person who points where to stand. The man arrived at twilight that had been dragged into noon. He moved like a decision that had been postponed for years. His hair was clipped close. The cloak he wore was not mine, yet it looked like mine. He took it from his shoulders and held it in his hands, as if giving himself a task would keep him from his question. "Do you know what you will ask?" I said. He nodded. "I have asked it many times, and never out loud." He stepped into the square of cool air, where day fell away, and the smell of pine rose from the dark outside. He faced the moon, as if it were a judge. "What is a life for?" he said. The room quieted. The light on the floor stopped crawling. Behind the columns, the sky was black felt. The moon was halved, bright on one side and ash on the other, a clean first quarter. In this room, the moon had a grammar. Waxing meant build, waning meant release, full meant accept, new meant begin again. The quarter moons were hard, a split instruction that broke cleanly through illusions. "Keep growing," the lit side said. "Cut away," the dark side said. First quarter was a hinge and a knife. The man waited for the lesson to soften itself into a word. It never did. The moon hung in its true shape and gave no speech. Answers here never speak. Answers behave. He swallowed. "So which is it?" he asked. "Grow or cut?" "That is not how this place works," I said, softer than I meant to. "The moon shows the kind of motion that will keep you honest. The choice is yours." He stared through the columns at a thin forest made of shadows. His shoulders eased with the rhythm of a person counting backward. He could have left then. People do. They file out into a life that suddenly feels obvious. They keep the motion, forget the room. He did not move. "Sometimes I think I am a character in a story written by a part of me I do not like," he said. "I try to grow, and it swallows me. I try to cut, and I bleed the wrong thing." He looked over at me. "Is there a third instruction?" "There is no third instruction. That is the point. This place exists to keep people from pretending a perfect world is available if they think hard enough. You choose a movement, and you live it. Chase perfection. Peel your mind. We keep people safe by letting them be specific." Still, I hesitated. When you serve in the colonnade long enough, you collect small, illegal sympathies. You learn where the light falls in ways that are not in the manual. You notice that each column holds a seam of darkness on one side, a thin sliver of cool shadow where the sun cannot reach. The old caretaker once told me that shadows here are not nothing. They are the memory of a thing's other possibilities. Touch one, and it feels like wind. "There is a way to stand aside without running away," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. Not a third answer, a different posture. He barely turned his head. I can still see his profile, a face made of resolve and fatigue. "Show me," he whispered. I stepped onto the marble that borders the window. The floor is scored with faint lines. Most visitors think they are decoration. They mark where the earth-sized world presses against the room-sized world, like two glasses touching. I laid my palm against the seam of shadow that ran down the nearest column. The air took my hand and cooled it. The moon blushed a little deeper yellow. The forest darkened into something that felt closer. "Stand inside this edge," I said, "and ask again." He did. He stood half in light, half in the column's thin shade, and he asked the same question in the same voice. The moon did not change shape, it changed weight. The lit side felt heavier, as if rules about tides had crept closer to the room. The dark side became a precise absence, not a lack, but a shape. He closed his eyes. "Grow the part that is real," he said, almost laughing. "Cut the part that is story." His hands stopped shaking. He set his cloak over his arm like a promise to himself, turned, and started for the exit. "Wait," I said, because instinct told me to warn him. "When you leave, you will forget this place." He nodded. "That is the exquisite mercy of it," he said, and walked out into the day that refused to be day. I should have felt my shift ending. I should have walked to the back room with the cracked sink and the ledger where I write the day's questions as drawings. Instead, I stood where he had stood and placed my hand in the same ribbon of shadow. The column was cool. The world beyond the columns became a little more accurate. "What is a life for?" I asked inside my mouth, with no voice at all. The room heard me anyway. The moon stayed a first quarter, but something in my chest adjusted as neatly as a picture frame straightened by a stranger. I felt the answer settle like a cloak on my shoulders. Grow what lets other people choose. Cut what makes them chase a perfect world. I pulled my hand away. The shadow did not hold it. The rest of the day came as days here come, in a regular line of souls disguised as people. A mother asked whether to sell the house her children had learned to slam doors in. A sailor asked whether to forgive a man who had not asked. A girl with a shaved head asked whether to leave a city that had taught her to be sharp. The moon waxed for one, waned for another, hid itself for the third. The room did what it does. It made nothing easy and everything clean. When the lamps were lit and the floor cooled from gold to bone, I found the man's cloak folded on the base of the middle column. I had thought he took it. I had watched him carry it away. Here is another rule that is not in the manual. Some things do not belong to people. They belong to roles. If you put on the cloak and keep the ledger long enough, time weaves you into the furniture. It gives back what it wants to keep working. I put the cloak over my shoulders for the walk home. Outside, the moon was different. In the real sky, it was nearly full. It hung like a white drum above the city, loud with silence. I stood on the steps and felt the ordinary wind, the kind that remembers streets and cooking smells. The colonnade sat behind me, like a sentence I had finished reading. I could have gone home. Instead, I turned and looked through the open doors. He was standing where I had stood. Not the man as I had met him exactly, but the posture was the same, the shape of his doubt like an echo you can see. He wore a caretaker's cloak. He looked at me with a slow recognition that had the flavor of memory mixed with invention. "Do you know what you will ask?" I heard myself say from the doorway, and knew that in other versions of this evening I had already walked away. He smiled. "I think so." I wanted to warn him about everything. The moon, the forgetting, the way a job can become your shape. I wanted to tell him the thing the old caretaker had told me when I first found the shadow ribbon on the column. Do not chase a full moon. When a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. The fullness of anything can make you stupid. Leave room for tides. I said none of it. The colonnade has only 3 rules for a reason. He went to the window and asked. The moon told him to build and to cut. He stood in the shadow seam. The answer settled on him like a name he could live inside. He left without the memory, carrying only the motion. I watched him take the steps with the peace of a person who knows what to do for the next hour. That is all anyone really needs. I folded the cloak and set it back on the stone. When I finally closed the doors for the night, The crack between them left a thin stripe of the world outside, a perfect little column of starlit dark. The room did not agree on a time of day. It never will. That is how it tells the truth. You do not need the clock. You need the motion. I walked home by the river. Lights made beads on the black water. The nearly full moon stood above the bridge, not speaking, behaving. I could not remember what I had done at work. I never can. But I knew what my life was for, at least until morning. Grow the small, honest thing. Cut the perfect story. Hold the door between day and night so other people can step through and take only what they can carry.